team, the UFOI team, was up there sleeping overnight in the snow in the middle of the. This was in August, so that thing is snow covered year round. And boy, I tell you what, our guys were saying that they were like hypothermic, and had to get into their tents and sleeping bags early that night just to survive the night.
Yeah, they died in July of 1939, as a matter of fact.
Oh my goodness! Well, you are quite a paranormal historian there, Jamie. I really appreciate all this input because between all of us here on the show, we can kind of commiserate with one another and corroborate some of these things that are going on.
Yeah, and when I was talking about Seattle and the strange noise at the Indian Cemetery, they actually had a TV program. I don't remember who did it, but they were in search of Bigfoot. And they had a whole group of people that went up there, and they said that they went like 20 miles into the forest, and they were talking about this big old adventure they went on. And I could tell where they were at on the TV, and they didn't hardly go 2 miles off of the road to Buck Creek up there, but they actually investigated it there as well.
Would that be before the Bigfoot? Oh, wait. No, BRFO. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it was back 90s. It was in the 90s, I believe.
Okay, yeah, because sounds like something the BRFO would do, because the BRFO has actually gone up to Lake Tyee and investigated their reports as well. And that's the Bigfoot research
organization.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They went up there, and I think they spent like 3 days up there. But where the bridge has washed out and stuff, where civilization pretty much ends and stuff, they only went maybe a half a mile past that. They didn't go 20 miles in, and they had a lot of strange sightings anyway.
Right. Well, that whole area is full. I mean, and that's a common theme. Is a lot of times if you go into Native American, tribal land, you will find skinwalkers. You will find a lot of native spirits. You'll find a lot of cryptids that we don't even know about that are tribal based.
Mhm.
So that's quite common. Now, I want to pick your brain real quick about Devil's Tower, because you hear all these stories about, oh my God, so and so died there, and I believe there have been deaths there. I'm not doubting that, but you have all these paranormal teams that, we got to get in there, and they break the law. They go into private property, and we don't condone that. But tell us about the history of Devil's Tower that you know.
Okay, well, back when the quarry was going, as far as I know, nobody ever even died up there in an accident. And the only reason I can say that is they had they had really big safety things at the cement plant, and they used to get silver certificates. They're like $2 bills and stuff for the certain amount of safety, they went through without accidents and stuff. And there were very few deaths whatsoever during the entire time that the cement plants were open. But in 2012, there was a young man that they were up there partying and stuff, and he fell. They were right on the outer edge of the quarry towards the lake, and he fell, and it was on his hands and knees, and it was dark, and he couldn't see where he was going, and they thought he had stopped, but he ended up just plunging straight down about 60 feet down to his death, and that was in 2012. And the interesting story about that is one of the guys that was with him drinking said later that he almost fell in that exact same spot, and the kid that died, he said, grab a hold of my shoulder. He goes, hang on to me. And he said that he saved his life, but then he turned around and he fell later that night.
So that's just in 2012, though.
Yeah, and where the Devil's Tower thing actually came into effect, it was while I was in high school, and it would have been, I think, 1982 or 83. And what it was some kids that came up camping with their parents, and they were from, Seattle. And they just went in there, and they they've spray painted and stuff like pentagrams and I remember the original graffiti because we went up there a lot when we were kids, and it was just like kind of like the stereotypical devil worship stuff, but it was these kids from Seattle is what it was. There was no rituals. There was, none of that stuff at all. It was just kids that, spray painted the walls while their parents were camping with them. And that was like family. Yeah, and that was in the 80s. And then there was one boy, and that would have been in the 80s as well. He was at the cement plant that's lower, right by where Devil's Tower is. If you go down to the East Concrete one, he and his brothers had snuck out one night, and they were rolling on the cables. And the little brother, he was only 10 at the time, he was on the inside of one of those big cable spools, and he got scared because it was going too fast, and he stuck his head out to see where they were going, and it decapitated him, and he died. But other than that, I'm not aware of any deaths at all. There's been deaths in the lake, by the quarry, but they wouldn't have been associated with the quarry. One of them was my cousin back in the 30s or 40s, I think it was. He drowned, and then there's been bodies pulled out, since, but they've all been deemed accidental.
And that's Lake Shannon that's behind it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Lake Shannon's... now, does not Lake Shannon go all the way to the Canadian border?
No.
It doesn't. Okay. It just you look at a map, it looks a lot bigger than it is. I think Baker goes to the Canadian border, though. Close to it.
Not quite.
Not quite. Right. So we plan on doing some, mostly probably between Darrington and Concrete, doing some FMP expeditions. Basically base camp setup, Bigfoot investigations, things of that nature, and of course UFO. So for those that don't know, Skagit County is number 1 in the state for UFO reports. It is tied with Gig Harbor or Grays Harbor County. There we go for Bigfoot reports. So
Grays
right
Harbor,
here.
that's interesting.
Well, you think Grays Harbor County? That's of the Olympic Mountains.
Okay.
So
that makes better sense because I can't imagine Bigfoot hanging out in Aberdeen.
No. And
is that where the nuclear plant is?
Aberdeen is, yes.
So that's not Bigfoot. That's just one of the guys who got too close to the reactor. We win.
And that's possible too. But no, up in the Olympic Mountains, there's a lot of Bigfoot reports that come in.
Are you all familiar with that movie? That movie that took place back. I think the movie was from the 80s, but it took place in the 70s, and it was the 4 or 5 guys that went up on the mountain, and the one didn't come back. They saw the light and it chased them off the mountain in the pickup truck. And then the guy that got left behind showed up at home like 2 months later. It was something like Ring of Fire or something like that.
No, it's Fire in the Sky.
Yep. Travis Walton.
Walton, Fire in the Sky.
Yeah, there was Travis.
Yeah, and very famous story.
Oh, yeah. And
that was a really interesting one.
Well, that story changed, actually. Actually, last year is when the news story came out. It might have been 2017. But, yeah, there were otters.
No.
Huh?
They changed it? It wasn't real?
Oh, no, it was real. But what happened is, they went they were loggers, and they were coming back down, and they saw a light in the sky. Travis jumped out. He went underneath the craft. And at the same time as he went under the craft is when the tractor beam shot down. So they didn't intentionally hurt him. He just happened to run underneath them when they shot their tractor beam down, and they killed him. So they didn't abduct him. They actually brought him onto the craft. They kept him for 5 days because they fixed him, revitalized him, brought him back to life, and then returned him. That's what he's coming out with now. Before, and that was an excellent movie. That had James Garner.
Yeah,
James Garner was in it.
It's what he played. He played the sheriff.
He played the sheriff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, in the movie, they really tore apart the team, the Logan team, because they thought they killed him. And in all reality, he was abducted, but he wasn't actually. He was just taken to help him, essentially. So yeah, excellent movie.
When he came back, though, wasn't he a mess?
Say again?
Wasn't he a mess when he came back, though? He came back and he was, like, scared to death, and he wouldn't talk about what happened or anything.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And that's common. That's actually very common with most abductees because, it's a traumatic event, traumatic experience.
Especially if you die.
Yeah. and I don't think he understood fully what happened. I mean, if you look at the Betty and the Barney Hill case, they don't have memories unless they're hypnotized or do go through hypnotherapy. But sometimes the memories are still fresh and they are very real. But
okay, I gotta ask then, because you guys are familiar with this and you have experience, and I know every person listening wants to know, what is up with, like, Cartman and the anal probes and stuff? Is that, like, a real thing? All the probes that happen and the scientific torment and torture and stuff?
Anal probes by
on.
aliens? No.
Well, all this, when you hear about the alien abductions, you're hearing stories and stuff, they're always talking about them probing or doing medical experimentation on them, real painful stuff and all that. Do they ever do nice things to them when they take them?
No, there have been cases where they've cured cancer, they've cured, some serious diseases and whatnot, but no, there's thousands of races out there. You got to understand that. And there's 16 documented races that are actually abducting, each with their own agenda. You got the gray hybrid program, which they're implanting alien hybrids in women, and now they're actually giving natural childbirth on Earth, which before they were actually. I know it all sounds far-fetched, but it's not. You have some races that are doing scientific experiments on humans, where you see, like in Travis with fire in the sky, the needle going through the eyeball. That is a common experiment they do.
What are they trying to do? You know?
Say again.
What are they trying to get out of it?
Yeah.
So I think that depends on the race again. There seems to be an interest in DNA. For example, they're checking DNA because if you look at most alien abductees, a good majority of them, when you ask them, they can tell you their parents were abducted, their grandparents were abducted, their great-great-grandparents were abducted. It goes down family lines. So what they're doing is checking DNA anomalies within generations. That's one scientific experiment we know they're doing.
I don't know if they want to be doing that up here now. We're a little bit far up in them our hills to be checking DNA.
Well, you got the Appalachians with that one too, in the Rocky Mountains.
Well, we're not quite as bad as Appalachians yet, but we're headed there.
I do got to tell you, when I first moved to Concrete, we moved from Bellingham. And we walked into Food Pavilion in Cedro-Woolley. And we told the lady at the checked us out. She asked, "So where do you guys live?" Because we were buying brand new food for the new house, getting everything ready, and we're like, "Well, we just my mother-in-law